Hello, Davide Dattoli. Welcome in this Coworking Europe podcast. You are the co-founder of Talent Garden, and you are like one of the legends of the coworking industry in Europe, we can tell. So Talent Garden is 10 years old now. You have 18 campuses in Europe. You are one of the most important independent players also on the continent. But first of all, can you remind us who you are and a short introduction to Talent Garden for those the few who don't know you yet?
We were opening our first campus in the north part of Italy 10 years ago. And the idea was try to creating an environment, a space where we can put together the best people in the tech industry. That's why we created Talent Garden. And the idea behind was really about empowering people working technologies, giving them the network, the space, and the learning attitude to really grow themselves. In these 10 years, somehow we were opening around 18 campuses, we were closing some. So overall, we were opening I think around 25 different campuses in our history. And we were growing from Italy to 7 markets at the moment. I can say some of the biggest market in Europe and leaving this sector, but somehow 10 years ago was really the beginning, and today it's something that is way bigger of what was before, but it's probably one of the biggest also in the future.
Can you mention a number of figures in terms of square meters that you are running overall, the number of members you have, because it's huge. I think people are not figuring out how huge you are nowadays, but can you remind us a few facts about it?
Yeah, we have more than 55,000 square meter across Europe, 18 campuses, more than 5,000 members. And on top of our co-working space, we have built our innovation school that train every year more than 1,500 students and more than 10,000 managers every year.
Yeah. So we have been organizing the Coworking Europe conference almost in every countries after also more than 10 years now of operation. And I remember when going to Dublin or Vienna, where we have this year's conference, or of course Milan when we were in 2015. The number one player public authorities were mentioning when we were in touch with them was Talent Garden. And Dublin, for instance, was saying, yes, but Talent Garden is coming to us. And what makes you special about it? Because you are not, of course, the only co-working brand around the place. But how do you explain that was it the initial ambition that brought you where you are now? Is it just, okay, you got the right partners, you got the right access to capital, because it's also an important element that maybe make you different from some others. How can you explain the pathway you have been through that is slightly different than other European players?
I think what make us successful, or at least let us arriving to where we are, I don't know if we are successful or not, but we are trying every day to be, is the fact that we were focusing not on the real estate part, but really on empowering our member. Mm-hmm. That was our goal since day one. We were opening our first campus without knowing what co-working is. It was 2010, 2011 that we worked on the project, and somehow was not famous as today. But the idea behind that was still the same, that is how we can empower people working in the tech sector. We are also vertical, but it's something pretty unique compared to other players, where are hosting everyone or are really on a single location basis. Since day one, we were thinking that we need to create a network. At the beginning, it was a network across Italy. After became a network across Europe, but we were focusing on digital and technologies as first differentiation point, and secondly, really focusing on creating a network of campuses. And this, I think, that create and enable us to raise more funds. We were raising around 50 million euros in the last years to grow our company across Europe. We are more than 150 employees today. We were able to get 1,000 of members. And really, all our campuses are from 3,000 to 8,000 square meters, so pretty big facilities. I think this was also a very key and important point. Try not to make some co-working, but try to make iconic campuses where people can really feel and understand what technology is, what innovation is, what the future will be. So for us, the co-working was a tool to aggregate the best people in the tech industry in the city.
So because tech industry and tech communities and address the startup world, it's not something you are the only one to do. We know Factory Berlin, and there is in France there is this huge startup innovation centers. But you are one of the few international, or maybe the only one, at least European-based with European roots.
Yeah.
How do you explain that? Is it just because you were foresighted and you just saw it coming, or the other were not ambitious enough, or to focus on just one city or one country?
I think that was coming also a lot by what was our vision since the beginning. So we were creating somehow the biggest campus in Italy, but we were not starting from Milan. We were starting from a smaller city. We were starting from Brescia, which is a small city in the north part of Italy. And I think this teach us and bring us to a very different level. Because if you start from a big city, Berlin, Paris, Dublin, somehow you will create so much success and so much business there that you have enough to stay in one location. Starting from a second city brings us to the fact that let's make it work also in a smaller city. And this create immediately the fact of let's scale it. Mm-hmm. And for this reason, since the day one, and this focus not only on startups, but on all the digital environment. So we have also a lot of freelancers, a lot of people in the tech industry overall. I think that was the idea behind since the beginning was let's try to make other campuses. And that bring us to a partnership with the Dublin City University, bringing us to Dublin, making partnership with two big corporations in Vienna, opening a campus there, opening two campuses in Spain, both Madrid and Barcelona, opening in Copenhagen. And I think also what was very interesting about the Copenhagen fact was the fact that we didn't decide to open directly, but we decided to merge with Rainmaking Loft, that was the coolest campus in the city, exactly with our same mission. But somehow the idea was, let's try to make it together. And that I think is something that in Europe, we are still too much fragmented. Each of us really believe and focus on, let's make it the coolest campus in Paris because everyone will come to Paris. That is happening. Station F is an amazing experience. They create something unique, incredible. But somehow we are still trying to bring everyone to Paris, but it's not possible. Europe is not Silicon Valley. Europe is, everything is different. So you need to open in Paris, but you need also to open in Berlin, in Madrid, in Milan, in Copenhagen. So as Talent Garden, we believe on this vision since day one. And that's why we were working a lot on the idea of let's try to make a European network. And yes, probably we are the only one if we consider the independent, like not the Regus and WeWork, but somehow our mind space, but outside in the middle industry, we are for sure the one with more broader presence.
How do you create synergies between all those campuses? Because yes, Europe is fragmented and we need to have a European footprint, but it's already hard to have synergies between locations in the same city. Or does it happen between your campuses and between this network you have built?
So I think the first things again is focusing on your member. If you understand that they are growing across different geographies, you have not only to be for them a real estate player, supporting them, giving an office in other cities. You need to support them on their growth in that market. Mm-hmm. When we start from Italy, we immediately opened in Barcelona as our second campus because there were plenty of Italian companies that were growing there, that want to understand how to expand their business in Spain. And so we were opening our campus, but somehow was for us as a bridge between Italy and Spain. And the same things is what we create. And obviously we bring many Spanish companies into Italy. And again, it's not only about giving them a space to work. It was about giving them connection with investors, with employees, with potential talents to hire. Mm-hmm. So it was really something about let's make bridge. And this is something that we were replicating also in Austria, in France now, in Ireland, in different countries. Obviously, not in the same countries is working. Like Ireland is now really connected with Denmark, way more than Italy. But somehow these bridges are growing all over Europe at the moment. And is what also make our campus really synergic between each other, because there is plenty of members that start as a member in one campus and became members in 5 or 6 different campuses. We had experience with Uber, with Glovo, with Deliveroo, so these super cool international startups, but they decide to use Talent Garden campuses in different phases of the history across different city and campuses. And that is what does it mean for us, focusing on the member growth and giving them value.
As you mentioned, there is news for Talent Garden. You're opening up a new location in Lille, in France. That's also, it's very interesting because as we mentioned, we spoke about capital city, and you said we are coming from Brescia. So Lille is slightly bigger than Brescia, but still it's a regional capital. It's not a main hub on national level. I have 2 questions about it. Number one, how important is it becoming for you to settle in those locations, and why is it meaningful? Another thing is what struck me when we visited the location you are in Milan right now. It was so huge. It was 2015. I think it was one of the biggest facility I saw for co-working space, and it was like very rough. It was industrial facility, and you build up those like boxes of offices with raw material. So you created this new setting. To what extent does it allow you to go in facilities and building that other players wouldn't go in because it's not suited for regular offices or traditional workspaces? So 2 questions.
Absolutely. I start from the second and arrive to the first. So first of all, yes, we find very iconic building. For us, iconic doesn't mean most of the time industrial building, really very difficult for other companies to occupy. But in our style, in our environment that we create inside the campuses was the best, because we feel that is what people in the tech industry want. And on this, if you're going to every of our campuses, you are really feeling at home. It's like entering to a Starbucks. It changed the building, but the feeling inside is exactly the same. And for us, this is something very important. Not all the network are recreating this. And we also find our own style that is very different compared to our competitor. So it's way less, I can say, premium or luxury, and way more tech oriented, because that is our target. We want to focus on this. Secondly, we believe that innovation is not only happening in London, Paris, or San Francisco, but is happening everywhere. And so we need to empower the best talents across every city in Europe. Not because we want to open everywhere, but because we were really studying each city in Europe, prioritizing where make more sense for us to open a campus. For instance, when we watched France, we decided that it does not make any sense for us to open in Paris. There are plenty of players that work very well there. What we can bring as a value more? Nothing. Potentially in Lille, that is an entrepreneurial city, companies like Auchan, Decathlon, and so on start from there, is a city with a lot of universities, so a lot of students, a lot of people that will go into the tech industry, and a city that is 1 hour from Paris, 1 hour from Brussels, 1 hour from London. So really well connected. And we were saying, okay, it's probably way better to open in a city like that. We find a very good partner that is one of the biggest retail company in the world, that is Westfield, where we open together with them in the city center a new location. We just opened, so let's see how we'll go. But somehow, really the idea is, let's try to make an impact in every city in which we are opening.
So the way you proceed to open new locations, so I repeat, 18 campuses, so not just location, campuses. It's finding a local partner you go along with?
Depends, market to market. What we do is, first of all, we develop our own algorithm that map every city in Europe for more than 100 KPI. Real estate development, ecosystem development, all the investment in startups, people trained on digital and technology skills, so plenty of variables. Out of that, we define which is our priority list, where make more sense to open. And when we study the ecosystem, we understand there is someone who can really help us to make the difference in the market. And in that case, we are opening some partnership. Dublin City University in Ireland is making the difference. Let's try to make it something together. exactly as the foundation of Agnelli family, that is one of the biggest family in Italy. We were opening together in Turin, in the north part of Italy. And on these cases, we have plenty across in Lille, is Westfield. So we are sometimes developing partnership. In other cases, like Madrid, we were opening alone.
Okay.
Because we were feeling that there was not, at that point, at least one partner that is the good one to open. But every time we try to make something that is impacting the local ecosystem and really a game changer for the digitalization of the city.
All right. We went through a pandemic. I think everybody knows. To what extent did it impact your operation? What did you do? What did you do? Did you have to close down some locations? And then what comes next? So how have you been through that?
So first of all, we were, I can say, pretty lucky overall. It was for sure a difficult year, and also this year is not the super easiest one. But we were lucky for three main reasons. The first one is we were mainly focused also on second cities across Europe. We have cities like Turin, cities like Brescia, cities like Lille, cities that were really less impacted compared to capitals. Mm-hmm. Milan was the city for us more impacted, while Turin or Lille were way less impacted, because somehow the effect of COVID was impacting way more bigger cities than smaller ones. We think about London. London was really impacted, while smaller one a little bit less. Mm-hmm. Secondly, more than 50% of our revenue are not coming out of membership, but are coming out of education. And that's somehow something that during the pandemic we're growing. So somehow we closed the year with the same level of revenue of 2019, somehow under expectation, because we were expecting to double the revenue, but still way better to other companies that were doing like 30% of the year before. And third, we were having a good shareholder basis. We were raising some fund the year before. So we were having enough cash to really go, I can say, under the pandemic, surviving. And our idea is arriving to the end of this year, that is where probably the pandemic will continue to eat up to, and try to arrive to the next years really in a player of consolidation. So let's try to put together cool space across Europe that can be put together into an alliance mode and creating a bigger player. Because one of the bigger issue is how is possible that Talent Garden is one of the biggest players in Europe if you take out Vigus, that somehow it is also London based, and there is no real big player in Europe. It's something that is not possible. We need to create bigger play in Europe, and as Talent Garden, we want to be the aggregator of this market.
Yeah, exactly. That's something we discussed just before starting the podcast. We just released this survey about 11 countries in Europe, and it's striking that continental Europe is really behind other regions in the world, Asia, Australia, or especially the UK, which has a lot more players, way more funding poured into the co-working industry. And what is also striking, and it's good to hear you about it, is Italy, among the biggest country in Europe, is the latest in terms of the number of operators, the number of locations, whereas you are one of the biggest. But even in Italy, you are a little bit alone. And we just saw that Copernico, which was one of the other big player in Italy in co-working industry, has been taken over by IWG. How do you explain that situation in Italy? And is it specific to Italy, or how do you see it?
I can say, I talk a little bit about Europe in general, and after we can arrive to Italy. First of all, why in Europe players are still smaller? Because the point is that the supply is really fragmented. When you're talking about US, if you're making a good partnership with a big real estate fund, you can take 20 locations with one deal. When you're talking about Europe, we have 18 different locations with 18 different landlords. Every landlord is a super complex negotiation. It's crazy. And this is creating a huge impact because there is no real estate fund that can provide you 10 locations. So does it mean that every time that you open a new campus is a new starting again from zero? And secondly, for sure, and this I can say it's particularly for South Europe, but not only, people are still in the mode of, I want my office, because the price of the offices is still pretty low. And so people say, okay, I can rent an apartment of 100 square meter for less than a room of 6 people inside a co-working. And so, and they have also this cultural feeling that somehow they have their own office, so they are serious people, instead of co-working where it's half enough. This in US is totally out, in Asia is totally out, in London is totally out, while in continental Europe is still something that has to change. Something is done, for sure, way better than 10 years ago, but still really to work on. And this in Italy in particular, the fact that Copernico were bought was mainly due to financial crisis, that were not able to manage well their cap table. But I think that they were doing a very good job, very different for us. They were way more focusing on WeWork model, or like cool space in the city center, instead of Talent Garden, that were somehow focusing on other campuses. But still, I think that Italian market, again, is really fragmented. The biggest real estate fund probably can give you one, maximum two space. Okay. So it's impossible to scale. So we have plenty of very nice, independent and cool space, but very difficult to have big player. And at the moment after Copernico was sold, I can say that the other bigger player has something that has 1 or 2 campuses in the country. So really far behind, where Spain is a little bit better, because there is other players that are consolidating more with a real estate partnership. And so they are somehow scaling Utopicus or Loom that are going way better. Germany has something. France, there is 1 or 2 players with some location, but still is really fragmented market overall in Europe.
It's interesting what you say is that to some extent the slowness of the development, the rollout of the co-working industry in Europe, it's also directly impacted by the fragmentation of the real estate market itself, meaning that players are mainly country based on national geography, so that you have big real estate landlords in Belgium, you have big landlords in Germany, big landlords in Spain or France, but no big landlords that are really in 5 different European countries at once, where you can, as you mentioned, make one deal for 10 or 15 locations at once in 5 countries. Very interesting. So it's also a message to the real estate industry that they need also to consolidate to some extent. That's it. It's a even bigger story that we might think of to some extent.
My philosophy is we need to make Europe. Europe does not exist. Europe is a flag, is something where you are in Brussels, so you have plenty of building with a lot of people working at European Union, but in reality, outside the fact that you have the euro as a coin, but all the rest is nothing. There is no common jurisdiction. There is no common companies. Think about real estate, super fragmented. Banks are super fragmented. In co-working are super fragmented. We need to create one Europe, because otherwise US player and Chinese player will start buying everything. And I think it's an opportunity to really consolidate the market in plenty of sector, and co-working and real estate is for sure one of it, as education is one of it.
Yes, one thing which struck me, you mentioned that your diversification of your revenue sources and education training were very important. Remember being in your Milan location that actually the trainers were the members. And is it still the model? Is it still that the way you develop your trainings offering and education, or you move forward with that? And no, you have standalone schools to some extent.
Most of our teachers are our members. We select the best people in the digital ecosystem to work in our physical campus as co-workers. So let's try to create more value for us and for them out of these synergies that we can create. And so for this reason, we create our school. And most of the people that we train in our courses became members of our campuses because they were hired by companies that are inside the campus, or because they are building new companies inside the campus. We are focusing our education into digital and technology exactly as our members are. And we created somehow a circle in which members became teachers, teachers trained people that became members. So it's like, it is a cycle in which you create
cycle.
value.
That's the magic. Okay, we are slowly arriving at the end of this conversation. It could last hours. What's in the pipe for Talent Garden for the coming months or even years?
So in the last semesters, we were opening new campuses in Barcelona and Lille. At the moment, we are evaluating other 4 new campuses that we plan to open in the next month. We have 1 location in Spain, 3 locations in Italy, and we are evaluating other locations in other countries. But mainly, we are working on the idea of really developing out of our members in our campuses all the education on top of our things. We start to become a big player, both in Italy, in Spain, in the Nordics in particular, as a geographical reason. Let's try to hyper growth in this market. Let's try to really increase our impact on what we are doing. And let's try to consolidate more on overall Europe, to aggregate other players in other markets. And let's try to really create a successful story in Europe where plenty of players start going together and create something that is visible and competing with global players.
How do you see your collaboration or you being competitor to schools as a whole? Is it because to some extent you also in the education business, disrupting the education business? It's training by the peers instead of training by the from the vertical top-down way. What does it tell about this? Is it just you, or you think that players like Talent Garden, which also could participate to the disruption of the education business as well?
I think that players like Talent Garden and Talent Garden itself want to disrupt the education industry, in particular in the tech skills, or at least for us. We are also collaborating with traditional universities, with traditional players, but we really believe that in order to, I can say, accept the bigger challenge that in the next 3 to 5 years are happening for the after COVID crisis, because we have to remember that COVID probably will disappear this year, but will not disappear the financial impact of it. So we will have millions of unemployed people. We have millions of companies that probably will fail. We need to work on reskilling and upskilling. We need to work on people and understanding how to reskill and upskill them. And player like Talent Garden, in collaboration with university, has to disrupt the market, has to help Europe to really get the skills that it needs to avoid a social issue that probably we never seen before, big as this.
Okay, words of hope still in this discussion, and definitely we as you said, co-working industry ecosystem, peer-to-peer, horizontal way to collaborate, and the synergies at the European level could participate to recover and to heal all the wounds that we got from this pandemic, hopefully. Awesome. Davide, we hope to see you at the conference in Vienna in December.
Hope to.
And anytime we can, we hope to have you as a guest to update about the new stories for Talent Gardens and everything good things that are coming up for you and for the co-working industry as a whole. Thank you for your time, and
thanks a lot to you, and
all the best.
Hope to meet you in the next event, or come to our campus whenever you want, or all over in Europe.
Yes, I need another opportunity to come to Italy and visit Milan or other Breccia campuses. Perfect. Thanks a lot, Davide. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Take care.